crazy. The Biden administration, the entire presidency, every signature, every executive order, every dollar shoveled out the door may be null and void. I don't think we're actually going to be able to get that, but we should. We should, because of the autopen. Now, Obama was the first one to sign an executive order or any law into action with the autopen because he was in Hawaii and he had to have it signed. And he, was like, look, guys, I approve the autopen. But in this case, did Joe Biden actually approve the signing of the? Remember all of the interviews he did over 4 years where he would be like, no, we didn't do that. Yes, you did, Mr. President. You signed it last week. Oh. Was that because he was just senile, something else that should make everything null and void? Or was it because he really didn't know because he wasn't doing the work? He wasn't the president because he was incompetent. Holy cow. If this is true, this is not just a scandal. This is a fracture in the spine of the Constitution itself. It's a betrayal of the social contract that we've, had since 1789. And I don't know about you, but man, we have got to fix these things. I've always hated taxes, but I don't know. It is really getting hard to even think about paying taxes when you know your money is just propping up thieves and liars. Wait until we get to the Stacey Abrams update today. I mean, honestly, with all of these things that are going on, have you had the thought, who cares anymore? I mean, why am I playing by the rules? Nobody else is playing by the rules. They all get away with it. Why can't I? Have you thought that? Really dangerous for a civilization. Really bad. So, how do they get away? I mean, look at Biden, just Biden himself. Decades in the Senate. Oh, I'm public servant. Really? Then he was vice president. And somehow or another, this guy who was just Lunchbox Joe came out a multiple $100 millionaire. How is that possible? His family was raking in the cash. None of them really seem to have any talent. I mean, unless it's, demonstrating the weird things you can do on drugs. The Hunter Biden laptop alone was a sewer of influence peddling, foreign deals, and God only knows. Well, God probably doesn't know, but Satan absolutely knows what else. He didn't get rich on a public servant's salary. Let's be honest. And everybody, even if you voted for him and liked him, you should be able to admit to yourself, at least, the guy got rich by selling out his country. And he strapped my kids, your kids, to a debt they're never going to climb out from under. $34 trillion and counting. And that money was borrowed from China or enemies who would love to see us crumble. And because he did it all on short-term loans, we are now having to re-up all of those loans at interest rates that are going to choke us to death. And if they didn't borrow the money, they just printed it. Oh, we'll never do that. Well, you did. You printed it. They flooded our system with all kinds of funny money until your groceries have doubled in price. Your rent has spiked. If you own your home and God forbid you had an adjustable mortgage, can you make that payment now? You're staring at a credit card statement that you just can't pay. That's not inflation. In this case, it's theft. And we got to stop pretending it's anything else. It's theft. Wait until I get to the latest on the graft and what they're finding. This story is not just about Biden, and it's not something that we should all go, oh, well, maybe we can work the system and say none of that applied because of the autopen. If this story actually holds, that says someone else was running the show. Who? Does anybody care about that? It's like, he wasn't the president. He wasn't competent. He wasn't even competent to stand trial. But we don't want to know who is running the country? Wow. some faceless puppet master behind the scenes running everything through autopen. Maybe it was a group of people, I don't know. And then we were all told, yeah, clap. The emperor has no clothes, but isn't it beautiful? No. Every law, every rule, every promise we've ever made as a nation, gone. If this is true, gone. Because the Constitution makes this one really clear. We vote for a president, not a machine and not a cabal. May I? Article 2, Section 1. I got my Constitution in my pocket at all times. The executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States of America. You know what that means? Yeah, no robots, no auto pins. Nobody just feed this one in, he'll never know. If this is real, every action Biden or whoever was behind him, everything they did is legal fiction. I've been saying recently, we always thought, because I grew up on Gilligan's Island, well, not on Gilligan, you know what I mean. We always thought quicksand was going to be a big, when I was a kid, quicksand, you're going to deal with quicksand. So make sure you don't go in and, you got to find a vine or a stick, but don't go in yourself, because then you'll be in the quick. I always thought we had to. This is a house of cards built on quicksand. And yet we all know that, and we all seem to be a little quiet while we're all footing the bill for it. $2 billion for Stacey Abrams' machine. $7 billion to what appears to be a completely fake charity. I don't know. I kind of have a problem with that. All borrowed, all printed, all shoveled out, while we were being told there's no food left on the shelf. This is all we can do for the people in North Carolina. Oh, my gosh, you should tighten your belt, because we're living paycheck to paycheck here in Washington. We can barely keep the lights of the White House on. That's not corruption. Dude, that's a middle finger to every hardworking American who ever believed in this place. Man, these smug overlords. Did you see when they voted to chastise what was it, Al Green, that stood up during the speech, and they all started singing like it was a civil rights movement? Oh my gosh, I'm so sick of these people. They've turned our kids into guinea pigs. Our kids are graduating, they don't know how to read. What, read? Who needs that? They've convinced them they're all born in the wrong body. They pumped them full of confusion while we pay for the counselors and the surgeries and the propaganda, and we're all like, as parents, I don't know, I didn't deal with this as a kid. What do? I have no idea. Well, listen to the experts. You should definitely have her boobs cut off. Okay, I don't think that's good. Every time we pay for this crap, every time a kid gives up on their dreams, every time somebody loses faith that hard work means anything anymore, that's when we're paying for it. Not just on tax day. We're paying for it every single day. Not them. We are. Your tax dollars, your sweat, your hope, your kids' future, all siphoned off to what? Pay for some people that despise us, who have plans to destroy everything that we believe in? That doesn't sound right. So, no, seriously. So Biden can retire in Delaware, fat and happy with all of his kids, not going to jail, not being questioned, not even being accused of anything by polite society. This is kind of what I warned about when I said, hey, social justice isn't a thing. We should focus on, justice. Those who pulled this off, whether it's the auto pin scandal or the billions that I'm going to tell you about here in a few minutes that have been funneled to their buddies, have you noticed nobody's naming them? Have you noticed there's no real look into, hey, who is running the auto pin? Who was covering up in the White House? Who in the cabinet that never had a cabinet meeting with the president? Who was it that didn't raise their hand and go, this is weird? I talked to him, and I don't think he understood even who I was. Is that not... Nope, not even worth a question? Here's what's most frustrating about all this crap. Even though I believe in the Trump administration, I think they're doing miraculous things. I think they're moving at hyper speed. I'm seeing things that I've never seen before, never thought were even possible. I don't know. I still fear the DOJ's not going to do anything. Maybe it's just me. I know the media's not going to name them. I know we're going to be the ones that pay the price, not just with our wallet, but just a little bit more of our soul every day. But they're not going to pay it. I mean, do you have faith? I mean, this is how bad it is. Do you have faith that right still wins? That the right even matters? That the scales of justice ever really balance? I believe God's justice. I believe that. And I'm fine. In some cases, I'm absolutely fine. They were murdering people, and they seem to get away with it. Oh, well, I guess I won't be seeing them in the afterlife. I'm cool. I'm totally cool with that. But when everybody seems to be murdering our dreams and everything we believe in, I don't know. I have a hard time waiting for Jesus. Because we are not just broke. If we allow this to continue, we're broken. And all of us should be really furious. All of us. And not some chest, oh, yeah, I love it. USA, USA. I hate that. Not some flag-waving fury, but I don't know, more refined, quiet seething of outrage that comes from watching something that we all think is sacred just getting trampled and us being told, sit down, you jingoistic heathen. But I mean, do you even speak the same language? I can just tell you smell. And this isn't about party lines. I don't even know. The supremacy of the Constitution? Yeah. But even that's a little highfalutin here. I mean, I know they didn't write those words, our founders, so some grifter could cash out and leave us holding the bag. That would be a problem, especially with something that starts with, we the people. It wasn't a slogan. It was kind of a covenant. But it's more of a bumper sticker now. It has been broken a long time. Not just by Biden, but whoever was steering the ship in those last 4 years, and a lot of presidents before them. But here's what, I guess this is the thing I'm very hopeful because it's changing. And I'm still a little pissy about it sometimes. I'm disgusted with them. I'm disgusted by the greed and the arrogance and the sheer evil of it. It is a little overwhelming at times, but I'm also really kind of disgusted with me. How did we ever let it get this far? How were we so blind for so long? How did we let them take our country for decades and turn it into their personal ATM? Let me break down some numbers for you in a second. Give me 60 seconds. First, I want to talk to you about something that's incredibly important, your sleep. You work hard. Every day you go out in the world, you fight the good fight. And when the day is done, I think you deserve to walk through your door into a really comfy house, a sanctuary, That's where Cozy Earth comes in. Their luxury bedding made from 100% viscose bamboo. Ooh, that sounds like French bamboo. They should really stop advertising the bamboo thing. Might want to de-emphasize that because that sounds really uncomfortable. But then when you touch it, you're like, wow. And then you go, this is bamboo? Yeah. Forget about the bamboo thing. This is temperature regulating, breathable. It's so cool. You're not going to sleep hot again. Their pajamas, which my wife discovered before I even heard of Cozy Earth, She knew about them. And when I brought the sheets home, she was like, yeah, Cozy Earth. Hello. They make bath towels and everything. It's really good. Cozy Earth's bedding project products come with a 10-year warranty, a 100-night sleep trial. You know what that says? Yeah, they believe in their product. And I believe in it. And you will, too. I mean, you can send it back, but you're not going to. It's CozyEarth.com/Beck. Use my code Beck. Save up to 40% off the softest sheets, the towels, the pajamas, and everything at CozyEarth.com/Beck. CozyEarth.com/Beck. Make sure you use the promo code Beck and save 40%. 10-second station ID. So let me give you some numbers. $7 billion, and I'm going to break this down for you next hour. $7 billion. 7. And it went to friends and charities that don't even pretend to be legitimate. You know, they don't even pretend to serve us. I mean, it's such a scam. Wait until you hear this. That's not us being generous, okay? That's not generosity. You know what? We as the administration, we're going to give $7 billion. You know, that's not generosity. That's looting. And that makes April 15th not our patriotic duty, but since they're going to throw us in jail and knock down our door with guys with guns, every time you write that tax check, I think it's armed robbery at this point. And then they borrow all the money that they can't live on the biggest windfall of taxes the country has ever seen. We have more money coming in than ever before. They can't live on that one. And that's why your dollar is buying about half of what it used to. I'm not an economist, but I am a thinker. And every time we swipe our card and pray it doesn't decline, wouldn't you like to see them swipe their card and have it not accepted? Except their card is our card. And if that happens, we all are screwed. Every time you see a for sale sign on a house you can't, you'll be like, I'll never live there. Every time we hear about another factory closing while the stock market is like, stock market's up, it means you're not just in debt. You're in chains. If I have time today, I'm going to talk to you about something else that really pisses me off, and that is property tax. I'm on a rampage about taxes. Why? Because they can't live inside any normal framework. Our kids, hey, welcome to the world, kid. Here's your shackles. And you know what's great about your life here in America is when you grow up, you're going to inherit a mess that you didn't make. You had nothing to do with it. And the people who made the mess, they're sipping cocktails and laughing. No, thank you. I mean, I don't want vengeance. I don't want blood. But I do want justice. I want every law they broke laid bare. I want every dollar they stole from you and me and everybody else accounted for. If Biden's presidency was a sham, if the autopen was the real commander-in-chief, everyone around that knew should go to jail. And then every order, every act, and every cent spent is illegitimate, null and void. Time we tear it all down. I'm so glad we have Doge in there. Rewind the tape, undo the damage, hold the guilty to the fire. Not because I want chaos, but I don't know. I want the rule of law to mean something again.
This is Glenn Beck.
Oh my gosh, that's me. What a coincidence. From the ruins of Rome to the ashes of the Weimar Republic, history whispers a warning to all of us. Paper money dies. The ghosts of fallen nations are screaming a warning at America. Yeah. Question is, we're going to listen this time? No, it's different this time. Is it? You and I affect Washington with our votes, and I think we did a good job recently. But beyond that, there's not much we can do to stop the economic chaos if and when it comes. And I hear that train a-coming. What can you do? Well, prepare yourself and your family for it. If you can afford silver or gold, that's great. Otherwise, I'd prepare by, joining a faith family. So, you're around a bunch of people that care about each other so you can help each other out. But we know gold and silver have withstood the economic hardships better than anything else all throughout history. So don't wait for the storm to arrive. Call Lear Capital today, 800-957-GOLD, 800-957-GOLD. You're going to get your free $4,200 gold report, why it could be headed for record highs. 800-957-GOLD. Call Lear Capital today. All right, coming up in just a second, I've got Josh Hammer. He's the Newsweek Senior Editor at Large and a good friend of the program. Welcome to the program. The senior editor at large and the host of Newsweek, of Newsweek, senior editor at large of Newsweek, and host of America's on Trial, also the author of a new book, Israel and Civilization. Josh Hammer is joining us. And I wanted to talk to him because he's a really good judicial mind. And Josh, I really am having a hard time getting my hands and my arms around this Supreme Court ruling this week, where the administration can't pause and say, "Hey, can we look into that funding first before we spend it?" Can you explain this ruling?
Well, Glenn, great to join you, my friend.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that I can necessarily apologize for it.
Right.
I happen to think that Justice Amy got it exactly right in dissent. I think what the majority is doing, and they gave us a rather unhelpful one paragraph.
Right.
It was kind of a hastily, sloppily written thing that they probably had a law clerk do just in a hot minute there, so they didn't really give it the time of day. But they seem to be relying on this purported massive distinction between the procedural posture of a temporary restraining order versus a full-on preliminary injunction, one of these infamous so-called nationwide injunctions, which, by the way, are totally wildly unconstitutional. And they seem to be saying that we're going to wait until the judge down below calls this an injunction, not a temporary restraining order. The problem, Glenn, among other factors, is that when you keep on extending a so-called temporary restraining order, at some point it ceases to be temporary.
Right.
At some point, it actually takes on the effect of one of these so-called nationwide injunctions, whatever you want to call it,
right,
whatever you want to self-style it in order to try to evade SCOTUS review there. But Sam Alito and the justice dissenting, they get it totally right there. You know, I think a situation like this, Glenn, some of the other cases that we've seen from the judicial resistance, which when I'm feeling a little less charitable, I like to call it actually the judicial insurrection. I think that they're really just challenging the fundamental separation of powers itself. I mean, you really have to look at this at a fundamental Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 type of situation there. The notion that a single district court judge, whether it's in Washington, D.C., Hawaii, Seattle, Washington, New Hampshire, whatever, the notion that one judge could bring the entire executive branch to a halt when it comes to bread and butter discretionary funding decisions there. I mean, this is the kind of thing that would have struck Thomas Jefferson back when he was writing this 1804 letter to Abigail Adams, John Adams' wife. He basically said that to give judges this kind of power would bring the judiciary into the realm of a despotic branch. Abraham Lincoln, my hero of all heroes in American history, viewed the Supreme Court and the judiciary very, very similarly there. So we're really kind of heading off, Glenn, to an actual constitutional crisis. The media actually has that largely correct. Unfortunately, they are pointing in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
They're blaming that constitutional crisis on Trump, but the real constitutional crisis, Glenn, is coming from these lower court judicial activists, frankly, these judicial insurrectionists.
Okay, let's say that, because I think this is what America is kind of hearing. Let's say this is the actual argument, that Congress said, you got to spend the money. They have the purse strings. And Trump said, hold on, it looks like this is graft, and I don't think we should spend this money. And the judge said, you can't even stop and take a breath and look at that. And so, I was thinking about it yesterday. If my wife and I approved and allotted a bunch of money and then told my brother, assigned him, who'd play the role of the president in this case, and said to my brother, you know what, I need you to pay the tuition of the school for my kids. And then he didn't pay it. And I went, what the hell are you doing? And he said, Glenn, I'm telling you, it looks like this school is a complete scam. It's going to be a waste of your money, and it might even be completely opposed to what you and your wife wanted in a school. I, for one, would not be pissed at him. I'd be like, oh, thank God. What did you find out? Or take a look. You know, how is this not common sense that this can happen? Or am I missing the argument? Is that not the argument?
So I don't think you're missing anything. What I will say is that kind of going to the constitutional merits here, getting out of the procedural weeds of the temporary restraining order type stuff.
Yeah.
The actual constitutional argument that I think John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett are probably sympathetic to gets to this debate over what the lawyers call presidential impoundment, so impoundment of federal funds, which is the idea, which is kind of what you're getting at in your hypothetical, that even though a different body has authorized funding there, then the actual party responsible for literally dispersing the funds can then make a decision as to whether or not this is going to its best use. So this is called impoundment of congressionally authorized funds. It actually has a long and illustrious pedigree. It was actually Thomas Jefferson, believe it or not, who was the first president who impounded congressionally authorized funds back around 1801, if I have the year correctly there. Richard Nixon was viewed by some in Congress at the time as abusing the impoundment privilege,
right.
Which is why Congress passed a statute called the Impoundment Control Act, which has not been constitutionally challenged. That's kind of just been left as the law for the better part of a half century now. But this is a long-standing constitutional debate. And to my knowledge, Glenn, I don't think the court has ever directly ruled, actually, one way or the other, as to whether presidential impoundment of funds does run afoul of the Constitution or not. I personally think it makes a lot of sense, actually, for the very reasons that you just kind of outlined in your hypothetical about the school funding. But that's just one of many constitutional issues, frankly, that this court is set to rule on, I would suspect, over the next couple of years, along with birthright citizenship, nationwide injunctions. There's no shortage of high-profile constitutional issues headed the Supreme Court's way, I think.
So I want to ask you about two judges, one of which I don't understand, and the other one I don't think America understands. First, the lower court judge, the guy was an activist, partisan, far-left litigator, like 10 minutes ago, who I believe said he wanted to undermine Roberts' court, and then you have the other massive disappointment of Amy Coney Barrett. I mean, what the hell happened to her? Can you talk about both of those judges?
For sure. So you're totally right about Judge Amir Ali. So he was a left-wing activist litigator as recently as like 5 months ago. Glenn, he didn't resume his seat on the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia until the lame duck session of Congress. He was part of the lame duck deals that were being made by Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer. He literally assumed office on November 22nd, if I have the date right there. Wow. And this is someone who, you're totally right, he was very outspoken publicly in his prejudicial life as a left-wing litigator. He was saying that the Roberts Court is tyrannical and he wants to undermine the legitimacy of it. So, I mean, what a banana republic type situation that this is the guy who is now telling the executive branch that you cannot choose whether or not to disperse this $2 billion in extraordinarily dubious funding there. So, I mean, that makes America look fundamentally unserious, frankly, the fact that this is the guy who's doing that.
Almost fruit from a poisoned tree. But now go to Amy Coney Barrett.
So Amy Coney Barrett is a tremendous disappointment. I don't think that we should mince words at this point there. There are more than enough data points to indicate that she does not have the fortitude, the spine, the courage of her convictions. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can say to try to kind of apologize for her. But at some point, you kind of have to just bluntly assess where we are. And she's heading the way of David Souter. I'm not going to say that she's not there yet. I mean, she still rules the correct way in any number of high-profile cases, the affirmative action case, obviously the Dobbs abortion case that overturned Roe versus Wade. But she is clearly the weakest link of the three Trump nominees. Glenn, I have one kind of overarching take on this, which is, in hindsight, Amy Coney Barrett was not a particularly impressive Supreme Court nominee in the first place there. She was somewhat of a middling academic in Notre Dame. She was not a particularly prolific academic. She was nominated to the Seventh Circuit because, young, affable, beautiful family, former Scalia clerk and so forth there. But if you go back and listen to her Seventh Circuit confirmation hearing there, I think what happened, Glenn, do you remember that infamous exchange with Dianne Feinstein, the late senator from California, where she says to Amy Coney Barrett, the dogma lives loudly within you?
Oh, yeah.
It was a disgusting thing, dripping with anti-Catholic bigotry and just kind of anti-religious sentiment in general there. But I think what happened, Glenn, my 2 cents on this, is that we essentially allowed Dianne Feinstein to make Amy Coney Barrett a folk hero. And she didn't necessarily deserve that status, really. But that's ultimately what I think led the powers that be to tap her to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg after Ginsburg passed away in the waning months of the Trump presidency in September 2020. So my upshot is we can't do this again. We cannot let people like Dianne Feinstein essentially take our nominees and then vault them up the food chain so that they're in a position there. No, we have to make sure that we are doing the homework there. Show us your track record. Have you actually ruled on all of the relevant cases, not just regulatory, economic, administrative state issues? Have you actually ruled on the civilizational cases, the cultural cases there? Have you actually called out wokeism, DEI, and all the various manifestations of cultural Marxism from your judicial chambers there? Are you going to get there, and are you going to demonstrate an eagerness to overturn flawed precedents and not looking for all of these various procedural quirks to avoid ruling on the merits, whether it's punting on Article 3 standing grounds, which Amy Coney Barrett did last year in the Murphy versus Missouri case, the massive big tech free speech case there? What is your view of stare decisis when it comes to precedents? Are you going to be a chicken when it comes to the possibility of overturning a flawed 30, 50, 70-year-old precedent there? I mean, these are the kind of things that we have to do a much better job of vetting for next time there, because Barrett quickly really is turning into a disappointment there. And I'm sick of people apologizing for her. At this point, she's really going to have to turn around, or I think we're otherwise in a pretty bad state, unfortunately.
Yeah, again. I've got so many questions on that. I mean, I don't know why it always happens in that direction and never the other way. But let me ask you this. What are the odds, do you think? How likely is it Trump is going to get another bite at the apple in the next 3.5 years? And who's advising him this time? You know, he came out with the list last time, and then he went off that list, and we kind of got in trouble when he went off the list. Does he get it? And are we going to get somebody good? And how likely it is we get another bite at the apple this time?
Well, Glenn, I do think it's likelier than not, certainly, that we get a bite at the apple. Unfortunately, the likeliest bites at the apple are probably coming from our strongest justices. I know. So it's Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas are the two most likely to resign over the next few years there, but they're also our two strongest justices. I do think that there is probably a slightly higher than 50-50 chance that Sam Alito resigns over the next couple of years. If I had to guess, I think he's slightly more likely than Justice Thomas. But Sam Alito is an absolute rock star. So that only kind of elevates the stakes and makes us really make sure that we have to pick someone rock solid to replace him there. I mean, I'll tell you, Glenn, in my opinion, who the replacement for the next justice should be. I'm biased, but I think it should be my former boss right there in North Texas, Judge James C. Ho of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit.
I was great.
Glenn, I was one of his first 4 law clerks. We literally started that chambers in Dallas, Texas, back in 2018. What an absolute rock star there.
Yeah.
That's who I would personally advise the president to pick to fill the next seat, whether it comes from Justice Alito, Justice Thomas, or someone else there. But again, we have to make sure we do better than we did the first time around, because even Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, they're better than Barrett, but frankly, none of these 3 guys are on the same level as Clarence Thomas or Sam Alito.
What a chance that Mike Lee is ever nominated.
I love Mike Lee. I actually was a Senate Judiciary Committee law clerk for Mike Lee over a decade ago after my first year of law school, working mostly on constitutional and antitrust issues. So I adore Mike Lee. I think he's an amazing patriot. I think there's decent odds. I mean, he's very close, certainly, to President Trump these days, much closer than he was maybe 5-10 years ago or so there. I think it's ultimately less likely these days, Glenn, that a U.S. senator gets tapped for a SCOTUS seat simply just because partisan politics these days are what they are. But if you're going to choose anyone from the Senate, certainly him or Ted Cruz would be fantastic choices. Josh Hawley, too, for that matter.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for kind of making sense of all of this, Josh. Josh Hammer, Newsweek Senior Editor at Large, host of America on Trial. And he has a new book, and I have to have you back on your book. Author of the new book, Israel and Civilization. But kind of kind of an important topic, and we'll talk to you about that again later when you have me back on. Josh Hammer, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you so much.
All right, everything affects the housing market. Here are just a few things. Interest rate policies, housing legislation, tax policy changes, infrastructure spending. I mean, oh my gosh, my eyes are glazing over right now because the list goes on, and it's all so boring. But buying and selling a home is a complicated thing, partly because it's taking place in a market that is affected by 1,000 different things all at once. So if you're about to dip your toe into the rushing river, may I suggest you consider getting somebody who's like a really, really good real estate agent, and also their eyes didn't glaze over when I was reading that list of stuff that just would bore the snot out of me for decades. One who knows how the market works and how the process itself works, like the back of his or her hand. I started a business over a decade ago called Real Estate Agents I Trust, and the job is to set you up with the best real estate agent in your area. I didn't know how to vet these people myself until I started working with what the Wall Street Journal said was the 500 best real estate agents in the country, and they all had certain things in common, and all we did was like, hey, connect the dots here. That's what we got to find, the real estate agents that have those dots in their life. And that's what we found for you, and that's what we'll recommend to you. It's a free service. I don't charge you anything for it. realestateagentsitrust.com. The name says it all. Go to realestateagentsitrust.com. Do it now.
Well, I guess we'll give you a minute to let all that sink in. More Glenn Beck coming up.
We just share with you and answer some of the comments that are from Blaze TV subscribers that are watching the show. And Sue wrote in, she said, I want something done. In another time, these men would be hung in public for treason. But then we became civilized. Well, yeah, I don't necessarily think I want to just get a rope. However, I do want examples made because we've gone from, hang him to it doesn't matter. It doesn't. That's the problem. We've just all surrendered to, it's always been like this. No, it hasn't. I'm going to show you next hour. No, it hasn't. Pygmy wrote in and said, why can't we get away with no justice, no peace? Michael, makes you wonder if the autopen was used on the pardons. Absolutely was. Frank said the autopen and teleprompter should run for the 2028 Democratic presidential ticket. At least they'd be honest. Quite honestly, Frank, I think you're right. You can join the conversation. Just head to blazetv.com/Glenn. In fact, use blaze47.com and the promo code 47. You're going to save $47 off. They haven't changed it yet. Quick before they figure that out. Do it now and save big. Blaze47.com, promo code 47.
This is Glenn Beck.